第5章，我們從第6節讀到第8節，然後呢，從第7節開始讀牧裡的注釋。先讀英文的，第6節到第8節。For while we were yet weak, in due season, Christ died for the ungodly. For scarcely for a righteous man will one die, for peradventure for the good man someone would even dare to die. But God commendeth his own love toward us, in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. 因為我們還軟弱的時候，基督就按所定的日期為罪人死。為義人死是少有的，為人死或者有敢做的，唯有基督在我們還做罪人的時候為我們死，上帝的愛就在此向我們顯明了。Romans 5:7 and 8， 第7跟第8節。Verses 7 and 8 expand what is implicit in verse 6。第7跟第8節發揮第6節的含義。Verse 7 shows the unheard ofness of one dying for the ungodly。第7節指出，一個人為不敬虔的人，為罪人死，是前所未聞的。And verse 8, the commendation given to the love of God by the fact that Christ died for sinners。第8節表揚讚美上帝的愛，因為基督為罪人死了。Verse 7 is frequently, if not usually, interpreted as drawing a distinction between a righteous man and a good man。解經家往往認為第7節區別了義人和仁人。The righteous man being the man who has regard for justice and will not deviate from the right, and who for that reason commands our admiration and respect。義人尊重公義，走在正路上不偏離，因此配受別人的欽佩和尊敬的。The good man, on the other hand, being the man who is not only just, but also benevolent and kind, and for that reason commands affection。仁人呢，不但是公義的，而且是慷慨的、仁慈的，因此呢，他配受人的愛戴。The thought then would be， 因此按照這個的解釋呢，因此保羅的意思就是說 that scarcely for a righteous man will one die, but by way of contrast, perhaps one might be prepared to die for a good man。保羅的意思就變成是差不多沒有人願意為一個義人死的，但是相對之下，可能有人願意為一個仁人死。The constraint of respect for justice will scarcely cause us to die for a just man。尊重正直和公義可能會約束人， but the constraint of affection might cause us to die for a good man。但是仍然不足夠使我們願意為義人死，但是為了愛一個好人，有可能使我們願意為這個好人或者仁人來死。下面是牧裡的回應。It is difficult to elicit such an interpretation from the text。從經文本身呢，很難引出這個解釋的。And it is scarcely defensible to plead this distinction between the righteous man and the good man。所以呢，在義人和仁人之間做出一個區分呢，是沒有根據的。The terms of the text would appear rather to support the view。經文的用詞呢，支持下面我們這個觀點。The view that no such sharp contrast is drawn between the righteous and the good。義人和仁人實際上沒有什麼特別的對照。But that these two epithets are used to designate the same individual as both righteous and good。兩個詞彙是用來指同一個人，他是義人也是仁人。And the thought of the text would be， 那麼經文的思路就是 that among men it is scarcely true that one would die even for a righteous and good man, far less for a godless, wicked person。 經文的思路就是說，差不多沒有人願意為一個義人或者仁人去死的，更不用說為目中無神、邪惡的人去死。But perchance it may happen that for such a man one will die. 但是也許有可能有人願意為這個義人死。The constraint of respect and esteem may cause one to die on behalf of another. 為了敬佩的緣故呢，可能有人願意為另外一個人去死的。It is on this background of concession that the complete contrast between the human and the divine appears, and that is the force of verse 8. 人與上帝之間完全的對照，是在這樣子一種的承認的背景之下，這個就是第8節的意思了。But God commendeth his own love toward us, in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. 但是基督在我們還是做罪人的時候為我們死，上帝的愛就向我們顯明了。In the human sphere, scarcely for a righteous and good man will one die. 在人類的範圍裡面，差不多沒有人願意為義人、為仁人死。But God exhibits and commends his love in that it was for sinners Christ died. 但是上帝向我們顯明推薦他的愛，就是基督是為罪人死的。There is particular emphasis on the fact that is God's own love. 保羅特別強調，這個是上帝他自己的愛。Literally, it means the love of himself. 直接翻譯呢，就是屬於他自己的愛。Not as love born to himself. 不是像他自己的愛。Of which he himself is the object. 上帝不是這個愛的對象。But as the love that is peculiar to himself and commended by the fact that it was for sinners Christ died. 乃是上帝獨有的愛。向人推薦的方法是，基督是為罪人死的。參考羅馬書第3章第5節。The love of God is here brought into direct relationship to the death of Christ. 這裡上帝的愛和基督的死是直接有關係的。In verse 6, this relationship is implied because of the close connection between verse 6 and verse 5. 第6節這個關係是暗示的，因為第6節跟第5節有密切的關係。But now it is expressly stated. 但現在保羅就明文直說了，第6節是暗示的。我們來讀一讀第6節。因我們還軟弱的時候，基督就按所定的日期為罪人死。第5節，所賜給我們的聖靈，將上帝的愛澆灌在我們心裡的。And the relationship is that the death of Christ is the manifestation and the expression of the love of God. 那這個的關係呢，是基督的死乃是上帝的愛的彰顯，乃是上帝的愛的表達。The death of Christ does not constrain or elicit the love of God. 不是基督的死激勵上帝的愛， but the love of God constrained to the death of Christ as the only adequate provision of this love. 乃是上帝的愛激勵基督的死，這個死是上帝的愛才能夠充分提供的。The love of God is the impulsive force. 上帝的愛是激動基督的死的動力， and its distinctive character is demonstrated in that which emanates from it. 這個愛的獨特的性質呢，由從它所流出的而證實了。The clause, while we were yet sinners, is parallel to while we were weak in verse 6. 我們人做罪人的時候，這個從句是與第6節的當我們仍然軟弱的時候是平行的。They are mutually definitive of one another. 兩者一方面解釋另外一方面的意義，另外一方面也解釋第一方面的意義的，它們是互為定義的。As in verse 6, our attention is drawn to the fact that the love of God is exercised to men as sinners, and while they are sinners. 第6節的焦點是一個事實，上帝的愛 乃是在人身為罪人，在人還做罪人的時候採取行動了。It is not constrained by qualities in men which would evoke the divine complacency. 這個愛並不是因為人裡面有什麼優點，以致激發上帝愛他們。And in like manner, the design of the death of Christ has respect to men as sinners. 同樣的，基督的死的目標是為人，為身為罪人的人帶來福分 and contemplates a benefit of which men as sinners are to be the beneficiaries. 人身為罪人是這個福分的受惠者。Romans chapter 5 verses 9 and 10. 羅馬書第5章第9節和第10節。Much more than being now justified by his blood, shall we be saved from the wrath of God through him. For if while we were enemies, we were reconciled to God through the death of his Son, much more being reconciled, shall we be saved by his life. 第5章第9和第10節。現在我們既靠着他的血稱義，就更要借着他免去上帝的憤怒，因為我們做仇敵的時候，且借着上帝兒子的死，得與上帝和好。既已和好，就更要因他的生得救了。Verses 9 and 10 are a fortiori arguments. 第9跟第10節是一個後驗論證。To the effect that if one thing is true, how much more must something else be true? 他的論證法是，若某一件事情是事實，那麼另一件事情更加是事實了。In verse 9, the premise posited is that we have now been justified in Jesus' blood. 第9節的前提是我們現在在他耶穌的血中被稱義了。And the inference drawn is that 而所提出的推論乃是that we shall therefore with all the greater certainty be saved through him from the wrath. 我們就更加的確定的必借着他從那憤怒蒙拯救。The premise in verse 10 is, 那麼第10節的前提是 we have been reconciled to God through the death of Christ while we were still enemies. 我們借着基督的死，在我們做仇敵的時候就已經與上帝和好了。And the inference drawn is, 推論是 with how much greater certainty shall we be saved by the love of Christ? 那我們豈不更確定的借着基督的生命蒙拯救嗎？ The two verses are parallel in construction. 兩節的句子的構造是平行的 and they both enunciate the same substantial truth. 實質上他們說出同一個真理。But the parallelism and the substantial identity as regards the truth unfolded must not obscure the distinctive features of the thought in each verse. 雖然所展示出的真理實際上是一樣，但是不可忽略每一節有它獨特的思想的。In verses 6 and 8, 在第6節和第9節 the apostle had not defined specifically the nature of the death in Christ on our behalf. 保羅並沒有為基督為我們的死做出一個定義。He stated simply that it was death on behalf of the ungodly. Verse 6 and on our behalf. Verse 8. 他僅是說為罪人或者為不敬虔的人死。第6節，還有為我們死。第8節。There is an intimation of the intent and the kind of benefits contemplated in the consideration that it was for the ungodly and for sinners. 保羅有暗示基督之死的原意和所計劃要給人的福分，因為保羅說基督是為不敬虔的罪人和為罪人死的。But there is no further amplification of the specific character of the work accomplished in Jesus' death, or of the kind of benefits accruing to the ungodly from that accomplishment. 但是他沒有進一步發揮基督的死所成就的有什麼的特質，也沒有說明借着這個成就為不敬虔的罪人所帶來的是怎樣的福分。The apostle had done that earlier in chapter 3 verses 21 to 26 and chapter 4 verse 25。保羅在比較早的时候，在羅馬書第3章21到26和第4章25節有這樣的解釋的。And that delineation was to be assumed in verses 6 to 8。當我們面對第5章第6和第8節的時候，應該以那2段經文所說明的作為基礎，作為前提。But now, in verses 9 and 10， 但是現在到了羅馬書第5章第9節和第7節 ，we are provided with additional definition of the specific character of the death of Christ and of the benefits secured by it。保羅进一步給我們一些的定義，就是基督的死的特點，然後借着這個死所確保的是怎樣的福分。It is not to be overlooked, of course, that he introduces these specifications of the character and intent of Jesus' death in the premises of a fortiori arguments。但是我們不可以忽略，保羅是在一個後驗論證的前提裡面提到基督的死的特點和他的死的原意的。And they are in that respect assumptions on which he bases other conclusions as his main interest。因此，這個是保羅的前提 premises， 總之他做出一些的結論，而那些結論才是保羅主要所關注的事情。But as premises, they are eloquent of what the death of Christ is conceived of as being and accomplishing。但是虽然是前提，却清楚告訴我們基督的死的本質和他所成就的是什麼。In verse 9, the death of Christ, spoken of in this instance as his blood, is viewed from the aspect of what it accomplished in reference to justification。第9節，基督的死就是他的血，從他在稱義上所成就的來考慮，既然借着他的血被稱義 ，having now been justified in his blood。We have been frequently confronted with the subject of justification in the earlier parts of the epistle。羅馬書前文我們多處看到稱義這個主題 ，and it had been used uniformly of that forensic act of God。每次它出現都是指上帝在法律上 forensic 法律上的作為 ，by which we are declared to be righteous and accepted as such with God。借着這個宣告，上帝宣告我們為義，接納我們為義。The justification inseparable from faith on the part of the subject， 稱義是與人的信心不可分割的。It is possible, however, that in this instance, the term is used in a sense coordinate with the reconciliation of verses 10 and 11。但是很有可能在這裡稱義的意思是與上帝和好，第10、第11節相關的。And in that event, applies not to actual justification by faith, but to the objective ground established by the death of Christ。那麼，若是如此的話，就不是指具體的因信稱義，乃是指基督的死所設立的稱義的客觀的基礎。Paul uses the substantive derived from this same term in that sense in verse 18 of this chapter, as will be shown at that point。在第5章第18節，保羅是這樣子用這個詞的，是作為名詞而用的 substantive。In Isaiah 53:11, it is distinctly possible that the word justify is used in this sense。在以賽亞書第51章第11節，很有可能的稱義這個字就是這個意思。And the parallelism in verses 9 and 10 would create some presumption in favor of regarding justification in verse 9 as similar to reconciliation in verse 10。那麼既然第9節跟第10節之間有着平行，這就給我們理由相信了稱義和與神的和好是相似的。On this interpretation， 根據這種的解釋呢， the blood of Christ will be construed as having it in itself objectively a justifying effect。根據這個解釋，基督的寶血本身從客觀來看是有稱義的果效的。 And the justification in view would consist in obedience and righteousness of Christ, which is the ground of actual justification through faith. 而这里称義是指基督的順服和順服所帶來的義，作為具體因信稱義的根據的。If, on the other hand, justification in this instance is interpreted in a sense which is all but uniform in Paul, 但是假如我們從另外一個角度來看，這裡的稱義的意思與保羅在其他經文的意思是相同的。Then, what the apostle has in mind, 那麼保羅這裡的意思是指 our justification viewed as taking place through the blood of Christ, 就是我們具體的稱義借着基督的寶血成就。It comes to us in Jesus' blood, and the latter is the ground of justification. 稱義是借着基督的寶血臨到我們的，基督的寶血是我們稱義的根據。It is Jesus' blood that secures our justification. 確保我們的稱義的是耶穌的寶血。And it comes to us in the sprinkling of his blood. 接着透過他的血被灑而臨到我們的。On either alternative, 不論你用哪一方面的解釋， the blood of Christ is stated to have efficacy and virtue in reference to that which is the cardinal doctrine of this epistle. 基督的寶血是大能有功效的，這個是羅馬書最基本的教義。Justification is strictly forensic in its nature. 稱義來說，基本上本質上是屬於法律上的觀念。And therefore, the blood of Christ, whether viewed as constituting justification or as laying the ground for justification, must be interpreted as having forensic efficacy. 因此，基督的寶血不論是稱義本身，或者作為我們稱義的根據，必定有法律上的有效性的。Thus, it is impossible not to define the efficacy and virtue of Jesus' blood in forensic categories. 因此，我們必須要用法律的概念來看耶穌寶血的有效性。For here it is directly related. What is specifically and only forensic? 這裡寶血是與法律上的事實有關。This is not a category suddenly thrust forward by the apostle. 這個概念不是保羅突然之間突發提出的。It was already implicit in chapter 3, verses 25-26. 在第3章25、26節已經出現過，它的含義已經出現了。The main thought of verse 9 is, however, in the conclusion that is to be drawn from the foregoing. 但是第9節的主要的思想呢，是從上文而達到的結論。How much more shall we be saved through him from the wrath? 我們豈不更加借着他從憤怒中得救嗎？ This refers to what will be true in the future as compared with what is true now in the present. 這裡是指將來的事有別於現今的事實。Now we are justified, accepted with God as righteous, and therefore at peace with God. 我們現在稱義，被稱為義，被上帝接納為義人，因此與神和好。And this guarantees future salvation. 這個就保證了將來的得救。What is the salvation in view? 這裡所論到的得救是指什麼呢？ The wrath spoken of indicates the answer. 憤怒就指出這個答案是什麼。The wrath is the wrath of that which will be dispensed to the ungodly at the day of judgment, the eschatological wrath. 憤怒就是在審判之日向不敬虔的人所發出的憤怒，就是末日的憤怒。羅馬書第2章第5節、第8節，帖前第1章第10節、第5章第9節，參考馬太福音第3章第7節，啟示錄的第6章16、17節。11章18節。And the assurance to be derived from a present justification. 而取來自現今的稱為義的確據是 whether viewed as a justification which consists in the blood of Christ or as a justification secured by his blood. 不論是稱義是基督的寶血本身，或者是基督寶血所保證的義。The assurance is that 那個確據是 No wrath is reserved for the justified at the judgment day. 在審判之日，沒有一些的憤怒是留給被稱義的人的。Justification is the opposite of condemnation. 稱義的相反是被定罪。And since justification is complete and irrevocable, 那稱義既然是完全的，不會返回的。There is no condemnation reserved for those who are in Christ Jesus. 因此呢，那些在基督耶穌裡的，就不會面對定罪的。羅馬書第20節。It is symptomatic of the confidence expressed in verse 2 and 5 in reference to the hope of the glory of God that the apostle should now explicate another aspect of that hope. 保羅現在解釋盼望上帝的榮耀的另外一個層面，表達了第2節、第5節對上帝盼望上帝的榮耀的確信 confidence， namely 就是 the assurance of deliverance from that which epitomizes the displeasure of God and alien from him. 信徒有確據必從上帝的不悅和與上帝隔絕的緣故而被得救的。The apostle should now explicate another aspect of that hope, namely the assurance of deliverance from that which epitomizes the displeasure of God and an alienation from him. 那現在保羅呢就要解釋這個盼望的另外一個層面，就是確保從上帝的不喜悅和與他隔絕被救贖出來。It was not irrelevant for the apostle to speak in terms of negation as well as affirmation. 使徒保羅這裡不單單從負面講，也從正面講，這個與他的主旨不是無關的。The hope of glory is negative as well as positive. 這個榮耀的盼望是負面的，也是正面的。In order to be positive, it must be negative of all that sin entails. 這個榮耀若是正面的話，它必須也是負面的，顯明罪所有層面的負面性。In order to be salvation to, it must be salvation from. 救恩若是得救進入到，同時也是就得救脫離什麼。And nothing sums up this from more significantly than the concept of the wrath of God. 那這個得救脫離上帝的憤怒，是最為意義重大的一個的總結。It was a virile conception of God that the apostle entertained. 保羅所想到的上帝是強壯的、活潑的上帝。And because so, it was one that took account of the terror of God's wrath. 因此，這個上帝觀呢，會考慮到上帝憤怒是多麼的恐怖。Salvation from the future exhibition of that terror was an ingredient of the hope of glory. 從上帝傾倒憤怒的恐怖被拯救出來，是榮耀的盼望的其中一個因素來的。Verse 10 introduces new elements of truth to reinforce his confidence, or at least new aspects of the same truth to inform and establish his confidence. 第10節注入了真理的一些新的因素，加強這個確信 confidence， 至少從同一個真理的新的層面來證明這個確信。For if while we were sinners, we were reconciled to God through the death of his Son, how much more being reconciled shall we be saved by his life? 因為我們做仇敵的時候，且借着上帝兒子的死，得與上帝和好，既已和好，就更要因他的生得救了。The analysis of this text requires us to take note of the import of the various expressions. 要分析這一節第10節的經文呢，必須注意到某一些的表述的意義的。Number one， 第一方面的表述 ，While we were enemies， 當我們還是仇敵的時候。The word enemies should be understood passively, not actively. 做仇敵這個字的意思是被動的意思，而不是主動的。That is to say， 的意思就是說 ，it does not refer to our active enmity against God， 不是指我們主動的作為上帝的仇敵 ，but to God's holy hostility to and alienation from us， 乃是指上帝對我們有聖潔的敵意，做我們的仇敵， 並且與我們隔絕。The word is used in this sense in 11:28. 在羅馬書第11章第28節，這個字是這樣用的 ：to denote the alienation from the favor of God to which Israel had been subjected. 是指以色列與上帝的恩寵隔絕。雖然以色列原來是在這個恩寵之下 ，it is contrasted in this latter instance with beloved. 這個是與蒙愛是相對照的。Beloved means obviously beloved of God and not the love of Israel to God. 蒙愛當然就是指被上帝所愛，而不是以色列對上帝的愛心的。好，我停一下，這個意思是說，我們本來的上帝是仇敵。用約翰米勒的這個福音單章來說，就是上帝的憤怒，上帝做我們的敵人。God has a problem， 上帝要解決一個難題，3個難題。Our bad record， 我們的罪行 ；bad heart， 我們的壞掉的心 ；bad master， 一個壞主人。God solves his own problem， 上帝自己解決他的問題 ，by giving us Christ's perfect record。上帝把基督的義行給了我們 ，gives us a new heart， 給我們一個新的心。And gives us a new master, Jesus himself. 耶穌就做我們他今天做我們的新的好的主人。So God has a problem to solve. He was our enemy. 所以上帝本來是我們的敵人，他要解決這個他能夠解決的難題來的。Again, hence enemies refers to a hostility of which God is the agent. 所以仇敵是指上帝的敵意，上帝是那個做仇敵的當事者 ，and means that the alienation to which Israel had been subjected in God's judgment， 以色列因為上帝向他們的審判，以色列伏在這個上帝與他們隔絕這個隔絕之下。Furthermore， 不但如此 ，in chapter 11 verse 28， 在11章28節 ，the sense of active hostility to God is not appropriate。To the context， 假如認為人主動向上帝表達敵意，這個意思是不符合上下文的。The context is dealing with the dispensation of God to Israel。這個上下文是在講上帝如何處理以色列。Likewise in 5:10， 同樣的，我們回到第5章第10節 ，It is this meaning that is appropriate to the context。這個意思才符合上下文的。我們來讀一讀第11章。第28節，羅馬書第11章28節，就着福音說，他們為你們的緣故是仇敵；就着揀選說，他們為列祖的緣故是蒙愛的。因你們的緣故，他們是仇敵。What is in view is the alienation from God. 所以這裡意思是說，與上帝隔絕。And the fact that the reconciliation took place when we were in a state of alienation. 所以這裡要講的是，我們仍然在上帝與我們隔絕的狀態的時候，和好就已經成就了。好，所以這裡是第10節的第一個表述，第一個我們要考慮到的。Number 2， 第二個方面的表述 ，We were reconciled to God. 我們與上帝和好。我們得與上帝和好。This might suggest to us that what is contemplated in the reconciliation is a removal of our enmity against God. 我們可能認為這裡是指除去了我們對上帝的敵意。This is not so. 不是如此的。It is rather the removal of God's alienation from us. 不是的，是除去了上帝與我們的隔絕。除去上帝的敵意。If we dissociate from the word enmity, in this case, all that is malignant and malicious, 假如我們從仇敵這兩個字除去任何人的惡毒 ，it means the removal of God's holy enmity against us。那麼這裡的字的意思就是說，除去了上帝對我們那種的聖潔的敵意或者憎恨。Only such an interpretation will satisfy the thought. 唯有這樣的解釋才能夠解釋保羅的思路。好，我們還是在這個 reconcile to God 與神和好下面這個 A 一個 第二個表述第一個小點 reconciled to God through the death of his son， 借着他兒子的死得以與上帝和好 is parallel to being justified now in his blood in verse 9。 那麼與第9節的借着他的寶血的稱為義是平行的。 The latter, as was noted above, is strictly forensic。 我們已經注意到第9節的稱義是完全是一個法律上的概念。 Hence， 所以呢 reconciled must also be forensic in character。 所以和好也必然是一個法律上的概念。 But the removal of our enmity, whether viewed as an act of God or as an act of ours, is not forensic in its nature. It is ethical in contrast with what is forensic. 但是除去這個敵意，不論是上帝向我們的敵意，或者我們向他的敵意，不是一個法律的概念，是一個道德上的概念。 This consideration of itself is sufficient to show that the reconciliation must be interpreted in forensic terms. Otherwise, the parallel would break down. 僅僅這方面的考慮就足夠證明和好這個道德的觀念必須要從法律這邊來理解，不然就會毀掉這裡的平行性。 B 還是在講第二個表述，這個第二個小點 Reconciliation is viewed as something accomplished once for all in the death of the Son of God。 上帝與人的和好是借着上帝的兒子的死一次過成就的一件事。 But the removal of our enmity of God， 但是假如是說除去我們與上帝的所仇敵的心的話呢， cannot be regarded as something accomplished once for all in the historical past。 除去我們作為上帝的仇敵呢，不是過去一次過可以成就的事的，是整個成聖的過程牽涉到的。 C 第3個小點 In verse 11, we are said to receive the reconciliation。 第11節講到和好的時候，是我們得到，我們領受這個和好的。 This form of statement is not suited to the notion of the removal of our enmity。 這樣來講呢，是不適合用在除去我們對上帝的敵意這個意思上。 The removal of our enmity, however it is construed, refers to a subjective transformation。 除去我們的敵意是一個主觀上我們裡面的心裡面的改變 transformation， whereas receiving the reconciliation implies, as Sanday and Hedlund observe, that the reconciliation comes to man from the side of God。 但是領受和好的含義就是說從上帝那邊而來的和好臨到我們，這和好這件事情上我們是被動的，我們是領受的。 It is a gift received。 這個和好是一個我們領受的禮物。 And this concept is entirely appropriate to the thought that reconciliation is a status established。 這個被動領受禮物的概念完全適合用在和好是一個設立的地位的概念。 A standing secured by the gracious bestowment on God's part。 和好是因為上帝開恩而賜下的一個 standing， 一個地位。 D 這個表述的第4個小點 This concept of reconciliation is in agreement with what stands in the forefront at the beginning of this passage。 這個和好的概念符合這段經文一開始就是第5章第1、第2節所強調的 namely peace with God as the grace into which we have been introduced and in which we stand。 與神和好或者上帝與我們和好是上帝讓我們所進入到的恩典，是我們站在的一個地位，我們站在這恩典中。 Peace with God is the status of favor resultant from the removal of alienation from God。 與神和好是受恩寵的地位，因為我們與上帝的隔絕已經除去而帶來的結果。 The reconciliation viewed as the removal of God's reconciliation from us is correlative with peace with God。 和好就是上帝不再與我們隔絕，這個與 peace with God 與神和好呢，這個和睦呢是相關的。It is a ground upon which the latter rests。就是因為我們上帝與我們和好 reconciled， 所以我們站在 peace with God 與上帝的和好的地位中。這個第二個表述的第5個小點 ，the emphasis of the more immediate context upon the love of God and the proof afforded by the death of Christ gives the whole passage an orientation。這裡的上下文強調上帝的愛，這個愛是由基督的死證明的。這方面的強調就讓整段經文有一個導向，一個方向，就是 which reconciliation interpreted as above carries on and climaxes， 而和好是它的高峰。Whereas a subjective interpretation interferes with this direction of thought。假如是指人主觀的與上帝為敵，主觀的與神和好的話，就搞亂了，成為障礙，就與這個思路的方向不符合的 ，and is not in agreement with the governing thought of this passage， 就不符合這段經文主要的思想了。Number 3， 第3方面的表述 ，the death of his son， 他的兒子的死。The title son appearing now for the first time since the introduction。Chapter 1, verses 3 and 9， 這個兒子呢，是自從羅馬書第1章第3節到第9節，跟第9節之後，這裡是第一次出現的。Draws our attention to some highly relevant considerations， 讓我們必須要考慮到一些與這段經文息息相關的一些的因素。A， 第一個小點 ，the person of the Godhead specifically in view as the one to whom we are reconciled is the Father。在三位一體裡面。我們是特別與聖父這個第一個位格和好的。This follows from the fact that the title God in this verse refers to the person with respect to whom Christ can be called his son。這個是因為一件事實，基督耶穌是這節的上帝這個位格的兒子 ，and only of the Father can Christ be called the son。而基督是誰的兒子？唯有是聖父的兒子。B。第二個小點 ，the title God therefore in verse 8， 因此第8節上帝這個頭銜 must also have the Father specifically in mind， 也必定是指聖父。Hence it is the Father who commends his love toward us， 因此是聖父向我們表明他的愛的。And the same holds true for verse 5， 第5節也是如此的。It is specifically the love of the Father that is shed abroad in our hearts， 在我們心裡面所澆灌的是聖父他的愛。C， 第3個小點 ，that we are reconciled to the Father and that it is the love of the Father that is commended to us guards against any supposition to the effect that the Father's love is constrained by the reconciliation。我們是與父上帝和好，父上帝的愛向我們顯明，就提防一個錯誤的觀點。譬如說，父的愛是因為和好所激發的，因為和好，所以父愛我們，這個是錯的。As also against the thought of incompatibility between love as antecedent and reconciliation as consequent。另外一個錯誤的思想是先有愛，後來才有和好，這樣也是不一致的。Simple lesson is that the Father loves and is also reconciled。我們要學的功課很簡單，父上帝愛，父上帝與罪人和好。And reconciliation is one of the ways in which the intent and the effect of the death of Christ as supreme proof of the Father's love are to be interpreted。而上帝與人和好，是一個方法去詮釋基督的死，這個基督的死作為父上帝的愛的最高的證據，去詮釋基督的死的原意和效果。我再講一次啊，上帝與人和好是用來解釋基督的死的原意和基督的死的效果的。Reconciliation demonstrates the love of the Father。神與人和好證明了父上帝的愛。第3個表述的第4個小點 ，that the death of Christ is the death of God's own Son。基督的死是上帝他自己的兒子的死 ，shows how the death in question can be the demonstration of God's love， 就顯出他的死是怎麼顯明父上帝的愛。The intimacy of relation expressed in the title Son exhibits the marvel of the Father's love to sinners。 兒子這個頭銜表達了父子之間的親密關係，這就顯明父上帝對罪人的愛是多麼的奇妙的。How unspeakable must this love be when it was the Son who died to make good its urge and aim。 這個愛是何等的不可言語，是由上帝的兒子死來證明這個愛的動力和這個愛的目的的。And what exigencies were involved when the Father gave his Son to die？ 父把他的兒子交出來，父把他的兒子捨去去死，是牽涉到怎樣的痛苦，或者怎麼樣的父上帝要面對的艱難了。那麼 for 這一節第4方面的表述 reconciled through the death of his son， 借着他的兒子得以和好。It is the death of Christ that is set forth as a reconciling action。 基督的死乃是成就這個相和和好的作為， and therefore as that which removed the alienation and secured instatement in the favor of God。 因着基督的死除去了隔絕，確保了罪人被設立在上帝的恩寵中。 The death of Christ is synonymous with the blood of Christ。 基督的死跟基督的血是同義詞。 Hence, the apostle has provided us with a new category in terms of which we are to interpret the significance of Jesus' shed blood。 因此呢，保羅就給了我們一個新的詞彙，去了解基督所流的血的意義。These various categories have their own distinguishing features。 這些不同的詞彙各有它的特點 because they take into account the multiform aspects of our need。 因為這詞彙考慮到我們罪人的需要的不同的層面 and the manifoldness of the divine provision to meet these needs。 而上帝滿足這些需要所預備的是何等的多姿多彩啊！那是什麼的層面呢？一方面上帝的憤怒，所以基督是挽回祭；上帝與我們做敵人，所以基督與我們和好啊！我們是欠債啊，他是債主，所以基督為我們付上了贖金買贖啊！所以我們的罪有不同的層面的需要，基督的死啊，告訴我們父上帝滿足了我們罪的不同層面的需要。Reconciliation has as its background our alienation from God。 和好這個概念背後的意思，背後的背景是我們與上帝隔絕 and it must be interpreted in the perspective of that exigency。 因此我們必須從上帝與我們隔絕這個困境的角度來解釋和好。Number 5， 第5個表述 We shall be saved by his blood， 就更要因他的生命得救了。The life of Christ referred to here is not what we often speak of as the life of Christ。 這裡的基督的生命不是指我們一般所指的 his sojourn in this world in the days of his flesh， 就是他在地上在肉身上在地上生活的時候，不是的。It is the resurrection life of Christ， 是基督的復活的生命。There lies back of the expression an implied contrast between the death of Christ and his resurrection。 所以這個表述背後呢，是暗示做一個對照，就基督的死和基督的復活之間的相對照。Refer to chapter 4 verse 25。請參考第4章25節。It is not simply the resurrection as an event that is in view, however。 但這裡所想到不僅僅是基督的復活這件事情，這個事件而已。Paul does not say we shall be saved by his resurrection。 保羅沒有說我們因為他的復活得救 ，but by his life， 乃是借助他的生命得救 ，and therefore it is the exalted life of the Redeemer that is intended。 所以這裡的用意是指我們的救主那個被高舉的復活之後被高舉的生命，我們借助這個生命的救到。The resurrection is in the background。 as conditioned the exaltation life。当然，復活是這個被高舉的榮耀的生命的背景。Since the clause in question is parallel to that in verse 9, we shall be saved through him from the wrath。這個從句既然與第9節的從句是平行的，我們必定得救脫離他的憤怒。And since the latter has eschatological reference， 而從他的憤怒得救，當然是指末日。It is likely that the salvation here envisaged is also eschatological。因此，這裡所講到的得救，也是指末日的救恩的。On that assumption， 我們假如這樣的假設的話 ，the guarantee of the final and consummated salvation is the exaltation life of Christ。那麼，保證我們最後至終得救的，乃是基督復活之後被高舉的生命。This is a more embracive way of expressing the truth that the guarantee of the believer's resurrection is the resurrection of Christ。這裡保羅就更加的廣闊的來說明，信徒復活的保證是基督的復活。參考哥林多前書第15章20到24節。The a fortiori argument of the apostle is thus apparent。因此，保羅這裡的後驗論證是很明顯的。It is to the effect that 他的意思就是說 ，if when we were in a state of alienation from God, God showed his love to such an extent that he reconciled us to himself and instated us in his favor through the death of his son. How much more, when this alienation is removed and we're instated in his favor, shall the exaltation life of Christ ensure our being saved to the uttermost？ 假如當我們還在上帝與我們隔絕的情況中的時候，上帝就向我們顯明他的愛，愛到一個地步，他借助他自己的兒子的死，使我們與他和好，使他與我們和好，設立我們在他的恩寵中。那麼當這個隔絕除去了之後，我們被設立在他的恩寵中的時候，基督高舉復活的生命，豈不更加的要保證我們必然得救到底嗎？It would be a violation of the wisdom, goodness, and faithfulness of God to suppose that he would have done the greater and fail in the lesser。 假如認為上帝成就了比較大的這件事，而在比較小的事情上失敗呢，就等於侮辱上帝的智慧、恩慈和信實的。This argument also shows the indissoluble connection that there is between the death and resurrection of Christ。 這裡這個論證也顯出基督的死和基督的復活是不可分割的 ，and that since these may never be dissociated, so the benefits accruing from the one may never be severed from those accruing from the other。 既然不可分割，那麼基督的死所帶來的福分和基督的復活所帶來的福分也不可分割了。It is a frequent emphasis of Paul， 這個是保羅常常所強調的。Romans 6:3-5， 羅馬書第6章3到5節 ，2 Corinthians 5:14-15， 林後5章14、15節 ，Ephesians 2:4-7， 以弗所書第2章4到4節 ，Colossians 3:3-4， 哥羅西書3章3到4節。Hence, those who are the beneficiaries of Jesus' death must also be the beneficiaries of all that is entailed in his resurrection life。 因此，基督的死的受惠者，必然也是基督復活所包含的所有的福分的受惠者。In this passage, this is viewed from the aspect of reconciliation by Jesus' death and a corresponding guarantee for the future。 這段經文是從這個角度來看的。耶穌的死使神與人和好，同時為信徒保證未來的救恩。我們暫時在。